when we channel our energy the right way, we can make big things happen like tonight.
Three-pointer, hits, Devin Booker on fire. Crowder looking, throws it alley-oop. Oh! He puts it down! He puts it down!
And I'm just so happy for all the people around me. You know what I mean? And to do it here in L.A. with the Clippers, this is my family too.
We didn't want to do a Game 7. We want to do it here tonight.
Chris Paul is in the NBA Finals. What do you think when you hear that sentence?
Man, it sounds damn good. Damn good. It's been a lot of work, man.
Hello and welcome everybody to another edition of the Solar Panel. I am your host, Greg Esposito. Ahoy, hoy. Glad to have you with us. You know, basketball season never sleeps. It never ends. And that's why we're here for you. And with me, as always, is the Silver Fox. He's the man, the myth, the legend. He is Dave King. Dave, how are you this morning?
Good morning. Man, it's like a fresh new day because the Suns are starting a brand new off season. We're just starting all fresh again. So I'm
same with my face. The playoff beard is gone. I don't know what the hell any of this is, but it's a lot fatter than before the beard was here. So please bear with me as the new one grows in. You'll notice that the Carmel Thunder from Down Under is not on the screen. He will be soon. Technical difficulties, but he is working on that, so he will be joining us. But we do have a very special guest on the program today. It's Nekias Duncan from the Dunker Spot podcast, one of the best out there in the business. He'll be joining us here right now. Nekias, how are you today, man?
Good morning, Nekias. Uh-oh.
I am doing well. How are y'all?
We're doing
really
doing
great.
Well. We'd be better if there were a Larry O'Brien trophy in Phoenix, but we'll take it. We're doing all right.
Oh, shoot. We are having some technical difficulties with Nekias, too. We can barely hear you.
It looks like, we're having internet problems with Nekias's connection here, so we'll try to reconnect with him and get him back on here in just a second, and hopefully Saul will be here soon as well. Got a lot going on, even though it is the off season. You would think, hey, the finals just ended, the Suns just finished playing. It's some time to breathe, and that is not the case. The draft is on Thursday. Free agency starts August 2nd next week. There is a lot in play right now when it comes to the Phoenix Suns, and usually we have months on months to debate what the Suns are going to do, how they're going to do it. Right now, we got a week to figure out what is the next incarnation of this Phoenix Suns team. Nekias, we're going to test the connection here again, but when you look at what the Suns, where the Suns are sitting right now, coming off a finals run, what do you think is going to be the main focus this offseason when it comes to the Suns?
I think the first thing is trying to figure out what the Chris Paul domino is going to be. Like if he's going to opt in, if it's going to be an opt in, he's going to opt in, get new. I think that's where you go first. And beyond that, it's just kind of bolstering the bench a little bit. We saw what happened with Phoenix's front able to operate consistently in the front court. So I think it's banking on the internal improvement from Jalen Smith, just getting him more acclimated in Phoenix, but also trying to find a some hope. Ayton, as you wait for that development, and just to have more options in the front court. I think the team is constructed is obviously very good right now. I don't think they need anything drastic.
So regarding Chris Paul, let's assume for a moment that he comes back to the Suns in whatever capacity, an extension or a free agent re-signing, however it is. Let's assume he's back with the Suns next year. Did you see anything this year that would lead you to believe he's on a downhill slide and that we should be worried about him being the starting point guard going forward health-wise?
I think he's obviously not able to separate as well as he used to. So I think the degree of some of the that he takes ultimately he's still a very good shooter. He's still a very good shooter. Still a very good maker. He still means a lot to the defense as a communicator and the guy that can still get over screens, not at all defensive level that he used to.
Shoot, this is terrible.
Yeah,
This is awful, guys. I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on.
Wow.
Nikias's connection was really, really bad. And I tried to fix it on my end, but I think it's probably where he's at in terms of his Wi-Fi. So, Nikias, I know I can see you still in the lobby in the green room. We appreciate you showing up. But I don't know what else we can do in terms of
if he's not too far, he was trying to get home. If he's not too far from there, he could just.
You can always pop right back in, buddy, for sure. For sure, we would love to have you back on.
Should we restart this whole thing? It's tradition.
I know, right?
I mean, we've done it before. Hit the open again.
Oh God. Okay. All right. Sure. Cool.
Barkley, 20-footer, yes, for the tie. Her turnaround shot in the air. It's good. Flash. Finds demolished. Barkley puts it up. Does it count? It does. Shanko does. Shanko center's good. Oh my goodness.
Hello and welcome everybody into another edition of the Solar Panel. I'm your host, Greg Esposito. Ahoy, hoy. Joining me as always is the Silver Fox. He's a man, a myth, and a legend in his own mind. It's Dave King. Dave, how are you?
Hey, my mind is a beautiful place to be. So I'm good. I'm all good.
For you. And joining us for the first time on this show today, it's the Carmel Thunder from Down Under. It is Saul Bookman. Saul, how are you?
I am. I've had better mornings. I will say that. That's for sure.
I have a blinding migraine, so I feel like we're doing this for the second time this morning. So it's like fine.
You guys all fell apart. See, I wasn't on every single one of those post-game pods. I think that's what did you guys in. It's like suddenly you guys are just like your computer's crashing, your brain is crashing, everything's crashing.
No, I mean the brain's not crashing. It's just
Espo's brain's crashing because he's got a migraine.
Look, my face didn't know what to do without the beard, and everything's gone haywire since. So let's talk some Suns, boys. As I mentioned if you're listening on the podcast, you have no idea that we actually did this open already. But if you're watching on the on the video stream,
the beauty
you're
of editing.
aware. So look, most years we'd have about 2 months to break down what is going to happen going into the offseason, especially the last 11 years. We've had probably three or 4 months to talk about what's going to happen in the draft and free agency. But guess what? Just like when in high school or college, you slacked off on a project that they assigned you 3 months ago, we got mere days to get this done because the NBA draft is Thursday. Free agency starts August 2nd. Actually, the legal tampering period. And, that means we're off to the races. There is no time like the present to break down things. And to help us do that, we have Nikias Duncan joining us on the program. There he is. Nikias,
hey!
How are you, man?
I am doing well. I figured that something was going wrong when I finished my full answer and I was just getting blank stares. I was like, oh, maybe this isn't going the way it's supposed to be. But I'm glad to be back. Hopefully, I think we're good now. So.
Yeah,
we are.
You
feel
sound
too bad.
Perfect.
Dave usually gives blank stares at the end of an answer. So
that's just because I'm old. That's an age problem. Just like your grandpa. Okay.
So let's hop back into it. We'll re-rack this. When you look at the Suns coming off of an improbable finals run, finished second in the league record-wise, what do you think they have to focus on this offseason? What's going to be key to trying to keep things successful going into next year as well?
I think the first domino to fall is going to be the Chris Paul situation, where there's going to be an opt-in and extend, an opt-in playing out the year, and then rolling things over next year. If it's opting out to getting some kind of 3-year deal, figuring out what's going on with Chris Paul is going to be first. And from there, like, I think it's just kind of patching up holes. Like, I think what we saw in the finals, particularly the back end, is that beyond Deandre Ayton, they didn't have many counters. Like, their best backup big was Dario Saric. He was obviously lost early in the series with a torn ACL. And from there, mixed back from Frank Kaminsky. They tried to go small with Torrey Craig, didn't provide the same kind of rim element that DeAndre Ayton did because, of course, how would he with the size difference?
Right.
So, like, I think some of that's just going to be internal improvement with Jalen Smith, just seeing what you're going to be able to get out of him, giving him the actual offseason should help. But also, like, finding a veteran, finding a quote-unquote traditional big that can kind of replicate some of what DeAndre brings as a rim threat, as a vertical spacer, as a rim protector. Just so you can have those different options, even if Sarge ends up being your primary guy whenever he's back. Just having different options in the bag, because Phoenix ran out of them in the final.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, as far as the backup big, I mean, there's lots of names going around. The usual retreads of guys who cling on at the beginning of every season. What kind of big would you look for if you're James Jones? You said a rim protecting big, but does it need to be a guy who can switch out defensively? There's not many of those guys.
Yeah, there's not many. So I don't think it has to be that. Like, again, like once you get into the postseason in particular, like, you just want options. Like, you have DeAndre Ayton that kind of gives you that two-way force and that physicality. You have Dario Saric that can give you some of the shooting, some of the playmaking. You have Frank Kaminsky, in theory, that can give you like the traditional pick and pop kind of game there. So I think what they're missing is another, a vertical threat. Like, looking at now Olympian JaVale McGee, like a guy.
I was just going to say JaVale. Yeah.
Like on a random Tuesday night can give you 14 minutes just because you need someone that can just run the floor hard, seal off guys, catch lobs. Just to have that dynamic. He doesn't have to be a consistent part of your rotation. Specifically, since you just invested a first round pick in a big man, so he's going to be part of your future plans. But just someone that can soak up those minutes and can match up with very specific bigs or specific teams. Like, I think they just need that in the bag.
You were very vocal after the finals about people just kind of slandering Chris Paul. Seemingly, obviously people have recency bias and they just go off of what they see in the last couple of games. But obviously, Chris Paul was dealing with a lot more than just a bad game. A lot of injuries. We still don't know what was really going on with his right arm. Obviously the Lakers series took a toll on him, but he was able to bounce back. And I think that's what surprised people about this series. Drew Holiday had a significant toll on him. What would you say to people who want to continue to disrespect CP3 and the method he went about these playoffs and his overall career?
Watch something else. That's kind of what, like, I did a radio hit a little earlier in the postseason, and I was asked, like, what would a finals win and a finals MVP do for Chris Paul's legacy, or like what would that mean for people? And my first answer was, if Chris Paul winning a ring now or winning a finals MVP now solidifies who he is in the game to you, then I have no idea what you've been watching throughout his entire career. Like, it sounds harsh, but genuinely, like, he's been one of the best playmakers in NBA history. Like, he's a very good shooter. He's been a very good defender for pretty much the majority, if not all, of his career. So, like, him getting a late career title obviously would be great, give you a little bit of a resume booster, but ultimately, like, Chris Paul is who he is. So as I look at what he's done this season, he brought everything that anyone that's been watching Chris Paul for any amount of time thought he would bring. He brought leadership on and off the court. He brought the pull-up shooting. He was one of the best mid-range shooters in the NBA this season. He brought the playmaking. The assists were back up. Like, this is who Chris Paul is. So I just don't understand where he has a strong postseason showing and then he has some bad games due to injury, due to defensive adjustments from Milwaukee, whatever. And it's, well, now the legacy takes a hit. Like, this is a dude that has been an all-timer for his entire career. The one glaring hole in his resume was that, going back a couple years, he hadn't made a conference finals. He finally made one. And then this year, it's like, okay, he hadn't been to the finals. He made the finals, had, through 2 games at least, looked like the finals MVP. I don't know how debatable that is on this show, but looked like the finals MVP through 2 games. The back half of the series was not great for him, but, like, he was a positive impact player in the finals at age 36 after being an all-NBA caliber player at age 36.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put you on the spot here, Nikias. If you're James Jones, do you give him a 3-year deal?
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I would actually. We're going to talk about this a lot in the next. Well, actually, in the next 10 days because they have to decide pretty quick what they're going to do. But I'd rather just have him pick up his player option, spend $44 million this next year, and then when they have to extend Ayton and Bridges and get those guys on the books, have him at a lower number for the 2 after that. But basically it's 3 years. So you would have him for 3 years. Hoping that he's good for at least 2 of those going into his late. The thing is, looks like his game translates to old age because he doesn't play very fast, but he just has to stay healthy. And we got to see what's going on with the wrist and all that stuff. But we got to assume he's going to be healthy. And you're right. He's brought the leadership that took them to the finals, and his stats in the finals across those 6 games were better than just about anybody. It's crazy because he was over 20 points and 8 assists or something like that. And for the playoffs. So people in our own chat are saying, I hope he's not a choke artist. Do you see Chris Paul being a choke artist because of his last 4 games?
No, I don't. Like, I think in general, when we get into this kind of talk, not just with Chris Paul, but just basketball in general, so much of this guy choked, this guy didn't bring it, this guy didn't live up to it. It kind of disrespect what the other team does. Like, the adjustment from Milwaukee, not just to bring full court pressure and put Drew Holiday on Chris Paul more, but to also have more help at the nails, more stunts, more timely switches, playing the big higher up and drop coverage and pick up. Like, all of that factors in to Chris Paul being less than what Chris Paul usually is. So even if you want to go with the choke angle, like, that's not it. Like, there was a lot of factors. And then you add in the health and stuff. So Chris Paul absolutely could have played better and should have played better. Like, the turnovers were kind of inexcusable. But we don't have to get into choke artist stuff. Like, there were actual basketball things going on.
Well, another guy who takes a lot of heat, probably more locally than it is nationally, is Deandre Ayton. How were you impressed with or were you impressed with the way that he evolved this season? And what do you think that next step for Deandre Ayton is going into 2022?
To answer the first question, yes, I was very impressed with what he did. Like, he made a believer out of me. I won't even say that I wasn't a DeAndre Ayton believer, because what I saw from him defensively last season really just honestly surprised me. Like, I didn't think he was going to make that kind of growth that early. Like, I thought the DeAndre Ayton we saw defensively last season was what we would see in like year 4, year 5. So for him to make that leap in year 2 basically is just absurd. And he improved on that. Like, he became more solid defensively, looked better in the drop, still looked comfortable on switches, did a little bit better job as the year went on, like navigating different actions. This is stuff that we talked about on the Dunker Spot podcast. But he found another level this season, and then found another level in the postseason, which is where it really is supposed to count. And like, he was a question mark for me heading into the postseason. Like, okay, we've seen this consistent growth, but now this is the playoffs. Like, it's more focused. It's okay. We know he doesn't do particularly well against this very specific play, so we're going to spam this 6 times in a row, see how he does. Like, it gets that granular in the postseason. So I was wondering like how that would look and what he would do offensively, because he's not Hakeem Olajuwon on the low post. He's a guy that can mash a mismatch when he's feeling aggressive, but he's ultimately like a face-up guy. You worry about wasting possessions in the postseason, especially with Phoenix playing as slow as he did. But like, he passed all of those tests. Like, he defended well, he rebounded well. The switches was there. The switches were there when they went to it. The drop was there when they went to it. He played with consistent force. In transition, he sealed off his guys early, did his homework early, all that cliche stuff. Got easy buckets, got to the field. So like, he did everything you wanted. It got to a point in the finals to where, again, Sarge goes down. They didn't really have a reliable backup 5 option, to where he was just overtaxed at a certain point. Like, he already had his hands full dealing with Giannis because he's freaking Giannis. But then when you're saying, okay, we also need you to play like 44, 45 minutes because we don't have anybody else. Like, of course, there are going to be more mistakes. Like, as Giannis gets more of a feel of Ayton, because it's not just 2 times in the regular season now. Now it's 4 times, 5 times, 6 times in a row. Then, yeah, he's going to get the best of them. But ultimately, I was very impressed with what Ayton did. I think heading into the offseason, it's continue to commit to the little things, as cliche as that is. Don't just make the running hard, sealing off, setting hard screens type thing a 2-month endeavor. Like, it has to be an every game thing. And then finding something consistent with the post game. I think that's what it is. Because I think him gaining inside positioning, I think he's very good at that now. And it's just finding something. Like if it's a consistent jump hook, that's cool. If it's some kind of counter with like an up and under or whatever, like finding something consistent. Because I don't think Phoenix is going to get to the point where they want to run offense through him on purpose, not at a high volume. But like it would be nice on like I want to say game 4. I want to say game 4 or game 5 when Devin Booker had it going and really nobody else did. It would have been nice if you could have like a 4 or 5 minute stretch to say, all right, DeAndre, Book's on the bench. It's you and Chris Paul. Chris doesn't have it. We need you to get us something. And like he didn't have that. That's not necessarily a fault of his, but that is a goal for him to aim for if he wants to make that next leap as an individual player.
If you were James Jones, would you give him the max this offseason since he's eligible for it?
Yeah, I'd do that. Like I think he already brings the impact on both ends. And even with that first contract extension, it's more projection than anything. Like if he's this good, he's going to continue to improve. Like of course you give him the max, and that deal is going to look better in a year or two.
He's only 23.
Yeah.
As of yesterday.
Yeah, as of yesterday.
Yeah. As opposed to Kevin Durant, who got happy birthday sung to him, but it wasn't his birthday. He was actually having a birthday.
That's a quality bit. Oh,
okay, so let's shift to Mikal Bridges, who's another extension eligible guy this summer.
Nikias likes him some Mikal Bridges. I know that.
Oh, but he's genuinely one of my favorite players in the league.
He's just one of those. He's one of those guys you just appreciate having on the team. You can't live without him, even though he did not have a standout playoffs this year. It seemed like every matchup was a bad one for him. It seemed like he was being put up against guys who were bigger and stronger than he was, but he was still incredibly effective out there. He just didn't step up in the way Deandre Ayton stepped up. Mikal did not have a coming out party in the playoffs. So what do you see for an extension for him if the Suns are going to go an extension route this summer with both guys?
I think the low end for Mikal Bridges is going to be like $490. Honestly, just because the brand of perimeter defense that he brings is rare. And if you can defend like that and knock down threes, you're going to get paid. Once you add in the fact that he defends that way, he knocks down threes, he also provides value as a cutter. We've seen him sprinkle in more pull-up jumpers. Like there are some on-ball equity. He can attack closeouts. He's not just a spot-up guy. And then if you run at him, he's terrified. Like he can do some things with the ball. And again, you're projecting forward with the first extension coming off the rookie deal. So I think $490 is probably going to be the low end for him. Like I think the easy comparison to make would be like OG Anunoby from last year. But I think he's going to get paid more than that just because of the market. That's just generally how that works. So I think that's where you start with him. I think anyone in Phoenix, fans, organization, otherwise, should be pretty excited for what he's going to provide moving forward. Like he's really freaking good right now.
Between him and Cam Johnson, I'll ask you this question. I'll just frame it like this. What's more important for that next step? Is it Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges taking a huge step to possibly push the Suns back to another finals? Or is it DeAndre Ayton finding that offensive ability to get the Suns back to the finals?
I think it's going to be between Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges. Because I think what happened, especially once Chris Paul started the struggle / Drew Holiday just kind of took his lunch money sometimes, is that Phoenix was Phoenix was short on shot creation. Like they put a lot more on the shoulders of Payne, and like that's not fair to him at a certain point. And I think what we saw with Milwaukee in particular, when they started switching more, or they were mixing in the switching with the draw, because they started with switching in game 1, that was a disaster. But as they got more detailed and effective with that, it kind of showed like, okay, Devin Booker's really the only guy that could just get it. And even when he was getting it, it's a lot of tough shots over Pat Connaughton, it's tough shots over Chris Middleton. So like even he wasn't getting the type of separation that like bends defenses. And so that's where it was kind of weird, because you look at the advanced numbers or whatever, and it's like, okay, Phoenix has a 120 or whatever offensive rating, and they're still losing because the process was not great for them. It was just incredible shot making at a certain point. So I think as teams switch more against them, because as good as Devin Booker is, he's not a bursty guy. Chris Paul certainly isn't a bursty guy at this stage of his career. Like you need someone that can get it off the bounce a little bit. And since Chris Paul and Devin Booker are going to be the guys that get the 2 best perimeter defenders to begin with, you need someone that can abuse those, the 3rd best defender on the team, 4th best defender. And like that's where Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson come in. We saw that for Cam Johnson throughout the postseason, particularly in the Clipper series. Like he just had some stretches to where like it felt like he couldn't be guarded against second units. But for Mikal Bridges, I think that's why he didn't have like the wow postseason, because he saw more switching in the later rounds. Like the Clippers switched a ton, and the Bucks switched a ton. First two rounds, they kind of get busy, and like Chris Paul and Devin Booker are leading the dance anyway, so he's just getting catch and shoot opportunities, stuff like that. So once he's forced to create, that's where it got a little wonky for him. And like I think he has potential there. Like I think he has a functional enough handle. The athleticism is there. He obviously has shooting touch. Like the pull-up jumpers that he took throughout the postseason, even in the regular season, like they looked good. So I think he can scale up some. But I think that's going to be more important because the shot creation in the postseason is so important.
Devin Booker, did in your mind, did he take that step into superstardom in this postseason, or does he still have some work to do to complete his game to really take him to that level?
Like I'm a stickler when it comes to like superstar titles, so like that it very much be a me thing. Like I think there are like 6 or 7 superstars in the league, and like I don't think Devin Booker's there. Like if the question is, did he take a leap? Like absolutely. Like just from a leadership perspective, from a shot creation perspective, from a playmaking perspective, really. Like he really did a better job of handling that. Like double teams did not fluster him the way that they did earlier in his career, which is a big positive. Like it also helps having confident teammates. You guys can speak to that with Devin Booker's history in Phoenix better than I could, but like it helps having that as well. But like he's making reads better. Like he's not a Luka Doncic that's gonna like manipulate defenses like that on possession by possession basis. But you saw more of that manipulation, like dribbling one way to make that help defender cheat down, making a corner skip. Like more of that's popping for him. So you combine that with the scoring that he has always provided, then absolutely, like he's very much in that top 20, top 15, top 20 class now, with upside to get even better than that. Like I can't call him a superstar now. He had some superstar performances, but even throughout this postseason, which was very good on balance, he had some clunkers in there. He had some stinkers in there, which, you know, this is his first postseason, so that's not anything to call him a fraud about or anything like that. But you know, that game to game consistency, and again, even when he's making tough shots, they're tough shots. Like he's not a guy that's going to bend your defense and just blow by dudes off the bounce. So, you know, degree of difficulty is going to be a little bit higher for him. So he just has to be a little bit more efficient, a little bit better and quicker with his reads. But that's going to come with more experience. Like I think this postseason odds is going to be good for him.
I think that is one of the most fair assessments I've heard of Devin Booker. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
glad I could be of service.
I got a question for you regarding going forward for the Suns. There's what do you think is more important for them? Is it to find a bigger, stronger, and better rebounding power forward to play ahead of Jay Crowder next to Ayton, or to find a good backup for Ayton and keep the Suns as a one big offense and defense?
I think it's going to be finding the backup for Ayton. So I think I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but I believe Phoenix's starting lineup was pretty good. After that first month or so, I think the starting lineup was very good for the rest of the season. So like I don't think that's an issue at all. Again, if you bank on more improvement from Mikal Bridges as an on-ball guy, so you can get a little bit more rim pressure, because as good as Phoenix's offense was all year long, like they were among the lowest in terms of percentage of shots at the rim. So you would like to get more of that, and I think between Bridges and just Ayton playing with more force consistently, like you're going to get more shots at the rim, more free throws from there, easier possessions, you set your defense on the other end. So I think that's going to be fine. I don't think you need to shift what they want to do, because ultimately, you know, a spread pick and roll attack with DeAndre Ayton as your lone big, like that's a pretty strong foundation with the pull-up shooting that Devin Booker and Chris Paul provide already.
Awesome.
One more from me, Nikias, if you don't mind. We heard some talk this week about Coach Monty Williams going into the Bucks locker room after the game. I'm not going to share my. I just want to hear, what was your take on the situation?
The backlash was silly. On the surface, it was silly. Like, even if you were in the camp that felt like, you know, Monty's ruining the moment, he's making it about himself, like, it's a 5-minute speech in which they're still going to spend all night celebrating, and then they're going to have a parade. Like, what does this even mean? And then we get, like, Giannis saying, oh, I invited Monty in. So now it's even more ridiculous that there was backlash about it. Like, Monty's one of the most genuine dudes in the league probably one of the most genuine dudes in the country, to be completely honest with you. But like, it's just not a big deal. What are we doing? It's fine.
Trolls are going to troll, man. Trolls are going to troll. Man, I swear.
And that is why Nekias Duncan is one of the best in the business. He gives it to you straight and honest, and we appreciate that here on the Solar Panel. If you want to hear more of Nekias, the Dunker Spot podcast is where you can find him. You can also find him on Twitter at Nekias NBA. I highly recommend it because you're going to get smarter about the game by following and listening to this man. Nekias, thank you so much. Anything you want to promote before we let you go?
You've done the important promoting. Like, follow me on Twitter at Nekias NBA. Follow the Dunker Spot with Steve Jones Jr., former assistant coach, former video coordinator. We talk X's and O's. We sprinkle in some puns. It's great most of the time. Apple, Spotify, wherever you can find podcasts, we're going to be there. As far as the written side, like, you find my written work at basketballnews.com. Just dropped the piece on Giannis not too long ago. Just dropped the Damian Lillard trade piece because the people love trade pieces, apparently. Got to pay the bills, you know. But
trades and free agency.
Get them clicks.
Got to do what you can. Got to mix in the film stuff with the fun stuff. So that's recent work. Going to be shifting more to free agency stuff. I'm going to have like a draft grade type piece after the draft next week. I did one last year, so you can expect that from me. But other than that, it's going to be free agent coverage and Olympic coverage. So,
we appreciate your time this morning.
We appreciate
you.
You.
Really do.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
He is Nekias Duncan. Again, check him out wherever you get podcasts, the Dunker Spot podcast and at basketballnews.com. Guys, I wasn't blowing smoke. I actually love how honest his perspective is when it comes to a lot of this stuff. And I really do appreciate him being on. But we've got, as we talked about off the top, very limited time to talk about a lot of things that are coming up here. We've got draft free, draft. When you got the 29th pick and you've already got a pretty packed roster.
Are we gonna pre-label the post-draft podcast to who the heck is blank and just fill in the name after that?
Yeah, let's just get it out of the way. The Suns drafted. Who the hell is that? And then I'll just edit in. I'll just edit in the name, and we've got our draft show.
Yeah, okay. He's choking up over this.
Yeah, we've got our draft show done right there. I mean that's usually.
Well, let's take a couple of minutes to talk about the draft before we go into free agency, because that's the more exciting part, I think, for the Suns this year. Let me make a couple of points on the draft. The first point is, if you're gonna have Chris Paul on some kind or someone similar to him, like if you're a fan of, well, let's move on from Chris Paul because he's old, just like you were last year, and gosh, look what happened. Then if you want to move on and go to some other, it's going to be another starting caliber, all-star level point guard. James Jones is not going to regress. So you got 4 big contracts a year from now. You need cheap labor is what I'm saying. You need draft picks to work out, like Cam Johnson. You need Jalen Smith to grow into a guy, or trade him for a guy who's also young, who's cheap, who's going to grow into being a rotation player. The Suns really benefited even this year with having Cam Johnson, and not even touching on the minimum wage free agents the Suns have, but they got youth from the draft. Ty Jerome turned out to be a better player in year 2. He looked way overmatched in year 1 for the Suns. He went to Oklahoma City, made 42% of his threes and 5 a game in the second half of the year. And yeah, that was a bad team, but we know from Devin Booker that it's not your fault if your team is bad. It's the whole team's fault. The Suns need cheap labor. So I think they need to draft somebody or use that to get another young player with a low salary. That's my big tip.
I completely agree. And if we look at the previous regime, let's just say it that way, or at least the last 10 years before this season, and actually the last 2 seasons, you just got to hit on a certain percentage of your picks, right? I think a good mark is if you can hit on 60% of your picks, you're doing pretty good, or at least recognizing when you do make a draft or do have a draft pick, like let's just say Marquise Chris, right? The ability to recognize in that first year when they're still unknown potential out there, as we say it. The ability to see that and be like, I don't think this dude's who we thought he was, and we should trade him for value now before he has no value.
Before the rest of the league realizes.
Before the rest of the league finds out, right? And I think good GMs will do that, right? And so when you see what James Jones did with Ty Jerome, he didn't see any value here locally with what they had in tow, and so they moved him, and I thought that was a smart move. Obviously, they needed to do that in order to get Chris Paul as well. But when you see those kind of things, that's how you want it to work out. When you got Jalen Smith, he's been in the fold, but you got to understand with Jalen Smith, and I hope everybody else understands, and I hope people get to see him play this summer in the summer league, because he didn't have a summer league. Everything was microwaved for him. He didn't even have a chance to get acclimated before the season started. Everything was so fast. And so to expect him to contribute in any way, shape, or form this year was a lost cause. This season, he's going to have 2 months now. For the next 2 months, I would be shocked if Jalen Smith isn't in the gym right now as we speak, just putting in the work to try and get himself ready for next season. And that summer league is going to be huge for him. It's going to be ginormous, just because that's the first.
Only in 3 weeks.
I know, it's crazy, because that's the first time he's going to get consistent playing time for at least a week since his college days, and it's going to be very valuable for him. And whoever they get at the 29th pick, and I'm not even going to say that the 29th pick is a throwaway, because you never know who could slide down that far. You might be able to get some senior out there or junior out there that's been through the wars at his level and has a little bit of gumption about him and is able to provide a little bit of whatever off the bench. Remember, this team's going to possibly lose each one more. Langston Galloway, Javon Carter didn't get a lot of run in the playoffs. You have to find guys that are good system fits and good locker room guys in order to replace those dudes, if you're going to replace them at all.
Well, one thing that this franchise has struggled with is, draft in general, but when you get beyond the early picks, I mean, for years, they've struggled. I believe probably the last successful later round pick, was Goran. If you go back and look, and we're talking, was that, mid 2000s, the last time they really hit on a guy, but those are the kind of picks that make the difference between long-term success at the top of a league and middling playoff team, right? It's that cheap labor that you're talking about, Dave.
Tyler Ulis and Elliot Kobo were not good.
Alondo Tucker, we can go further back. All these guys that
done well with the late first, early second picks, but we're not draft guys, so we're not going to say names. Sorry to the folks in the chat. We appreciate you guys throwing names out, but I don't even recognize them. So we'll just see.
You don't know Mac McClung?
Yeah, right.
The former Georgetown and now Texas Tech Red Raider. Come on now, Mac McClung's
good for you,
a basketball legend, baby.
This Marquise, is that how you say it? Chris guy they're talking about in the chat sounds intriguing.
DJ Strawberry.
That is another name.
Oh, that one hurts.
Hey, man, I remember having hopes for DJ Strawberry. I had hopes.
But that's the thing. You need to hit on those kind of picks. Not every one of them. Nobody hits on every one of them. But you have to find one or two guys when you're picking 29th or in that second round that can actually have an impact. Because to your point, Dave, this roster in terms of salary is going to be top heavy real quick with all these extensions. And if you're going to extend, DA and Mikal, and then you're looking at Chris Paul for 3 years, $100 million. Devin Booker, obviously, his salary continues to increase, and he actually, surprisingly enough, is eligible again for another extension. You're going to be top heavy on money, so you got to find unique ways to get quality players in at a price that is advantageous for you. Drafting well is one of those.
Let's face it, James Jones has been trying to draft in the late first round for years now. I mean, Cam Johnson early, Jalen Smith early. I mean, now he finally gets the pick he always wanted. So let's see what he does with it.
Yeah, based on, I remember 2 years ago, based on draft boards, Cam Johnson probably would have been there at the 29th.
I will throw a name out there just because it's fun and Dave's going to be irked by me doing this. I really would love to see Jared Butler slide to the Suns.
Gerard Butler, one of my favorites.
Jared Butler, from Baylor. I think his defense. Somebody in the chat said you just need to get some dogs on your team, and Jared Butler is absolutely a dog, and he might slide because of his pre-draft physical that he had something to go with his heart or whatever. But he's been cleared now.
How old is he?
But he's 22, so he's a little bit of an older guard. But man, he's a dude that just gets after it on the defensive end. And so I would like to see him.
And if we draft him, that means we get to say the Butler did it when he does something fun. So,
oh my God.
So I'm
there
also
we go.
curious what James Jones does in the draft. Year 1 in the draft, he made 3 trades on draft day. I mean, changed half the roster on draft day. And then year 2, all he did was just pick Jalen Smith and it was over. So, but you can count on us probably. I don't know. We haven't talked about this yet. Are we going to do a post-game or post-draft pod, or are we going to wait till Saturday morning since it's Thursday anyway?
Who the hell knows? You're asking me to think 4 days ahead.
Yeah, all right.
You'll find out Wednesday night.
Draft after it happens because we're no good at talking about it before. Let's move on to free agency.
Yes, let's do that. Let's do that.
This pod. Free agency is much more fun.
Look, free agency, obviously – the biggest question, and Nikias brought it up while we were talking with him, it comes down to the first domino that has to fall is what the hell is going to happen with Chris Paul, right? Rumors this week that, the Lakers are going to make a run at CP3 because if there's a guy out there that has a pulse, the Lakers reportedly are going to try to get him. It's that time-honored tradition of it's the beginning of the offseason, so the Lakers are going to sign everybody and their younger brother, whether they're good or not.
Philip Boozer, Kofi Blackburn went back to Illinois, just so you know. There you go. Keep going. Sorry.
Are we speaking English or am I having a stroke?
No, keep going. Keep going.
Anyway, so what is CP3 going to do? There's some options. Obviously, opt out, re-sign in a 3-year extension, and spread that money out over the 3 years. Opt into his $44 million and extend for an additional 2 years, which the Suns can do with him this offseason, and have it again equal about $100 million is what people assume. But defer some or have that money front loaded so you save on the back half of that contract, or he could opt out and walk away. Those are
can
the
we still
three.
Do Bobby Bonilla contracts? I mean, can we
No,
do that?
You can't do that in the NBA. So we will not be paying Chris Paul until 2051. We will not have CP3 Day here in Phoenix where he gets $1 million.
Had the best ever. But anyway,
still does. Still getting paid by the Mets. But when you look at this, what do you think is the most likely outcome of the 3 when it comes to Chris Paul being the first domino to fall? Dave, what do you think?
Gosh, what do I think is most likely is that he's going to opt out and sign a 3-year new contract that's around $30 million a year. That's what I think is most likely. What I'd prefer is that he picks up the player option for $44 million next year and signs for an extra 50 over the 2 after that. Still 3 years, same exact 3 years. It's just that you're front loading it basically, which the NBA does not allow normally. They don't allow any kind of front loading. The NBA is built to be a growing salary sport. So it's very rare that you have declining. And if you do want to do a declining in the NBA, it's got to be like no more than 5% a year. So it's not really declining. So what I'd prefer is that he does 44 for 1 year, then 25 a year after that. So when DA and Mikal, you don't have to make a choice like Sam Presti had to make in 2011 or 2012 with James Harden. And because Sam Presti had it a lot tougher, by the way. People are going to remember the Thunder trading James Harden. They already had extended Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook to the 5-year maxes. And then we're facing James Harden and Serge Ibaka. So it's not quite like that, but it's close because you got CP3 and Devin Booker on huge contracts. And now you have to extend both DA and Mikal. I don't want them to have to choose. I don't want Robert Sarver to have to choose. So I'd rather see P make 25 a year in those last 2 years of his contract, the first two of DA and Mikal.
Let me be very clear. They never should have to choose now that there's gambling money coming into these teams. They basically are printing money in Arizona now. So there should never be a choice. Even if you have to go in the tax, spend the damn money. So what do you think? CP3, what's the best CP3 option?
I hear where Dave's coming from. I feel like the window on CP3 is closing, right? In terms of his production. And I think if you don't get the assets you need to early on, like especially I would say this year, right? This year I feel like is like the next best thing you're going to have. And then after that, you're very much hoping that DA and Mikal and Cam are going to take such a significant jump to offset what Chris Paul is going to lose. And so for that, I would say I would like for them to save money this year in order to be able to pull in the assets that they might need to get them over the hump and win a championship. Let's be real.
Just get her done is what you're saying.
Yeah, just get it done. Let's be real, okay? I was never going to use the excuse of injury as the reason why the Suns got to the finals, and I still don't believe that. But the fact of the matter is that health is going to be a significant reason why other teams are more competitive than they were this past season. Golden State being one of them. Obviously, the Nets being fully healthy would help, but you never know how things are going to play out. People can get re-hurt again. Anthony Davis stays hurt, like whatever. But you took advantage of a window that was there. And so I think if the Suns are going to do that again, with the Clippers possibly losing Kawhi for the rest of the year, you got to take advantage. And the window is right now. And so I think that's the reason why I hope he does not accept the extension, and I hope he just the player option, and I hope they just give him a 3-year deal.
Okay, so you're going win now, get the most money possible, so he's got a lower salary this year. That's definitely a valid. Okay, let me just do a quick primer for free agency for everybody. The Suns don't have a lot of money. They're now the going worry today is whether they're willing to go into the luxury tax or not. Almost no NBA team, no matter how cheap you think Robert Sarver is, almost no NBA team purposely goes in the luxury tax unless they absolutely have to re-sign a guy that they have. And the Suns don't have to do that this year. Right now, it's Chris Paul, and then they'll have a little bit of extra money to spend. So the Suns are not swimming in money. Where they really just need to do is decide: you want to run it back and then just add, like Nikaya said, add a big. And then add maybe a playmaker in the backcourt. That's a great way to just run it back if you believe this team will just get better next year. And whatever loss you have on Chris Paul's performance, you gain on the natural improvement of Booker, Ayton, and Bridges, and Cam Johnson, and all those guys, which is a very valid thing to think if you're worried about the Suns being able to run it back. So that's the thing. And if you want to do that, then you do the 3-year contract for CP. So you get even a little bit more spending money, because if you can get him for 30 mil this year instead of 44, there's your 14 million for a second good add to the team. Yeah.
But you still have the mid-level. If you go over, you're likely going to have the injury exception that you're going to get for Saric, which I believe is 4.2 million.
He has to. Saric has to be ruled out for the entire season, and he's not going to be. So they won't get. I
still think they're going to talk him into that. Like, hey, let's sit it out. You rehab. We'll get you back for that last year. Let's get that.
Yeah, because what's the point of him coming back basically right at playoff time?
Well, to experience
if you're lucky,
that's assuming he's ready to go. You know what I mean? That's a lot.
I mean, he got injured in July, right? Like, there's not even a guarantee that April playoff time he's ready to go. My guess is that they have that. But before we move on from Chris Paul, I actually think. I agree in part, Saul. If you're going to extend him, that's the way to do it, to save the money up front. But I actually think I want to just see him pick up the player option, and then they can, they both can make a decision about their future next year. No extension. That's ideal to me.
I think if he picks up his player extension, okay, If he picks up his player extension and that's it, and they don't extend him or anything like that, they're just like, okay, well, let this next year play out. I think that's the end of the Chris Paul era after another year.
Which I'm fine with that because he's going to be almost 38 at that point. I run it back 1 year. You see, can you replicate that success? And then you move into a new era as that Ayton and Bridges extension come on the books, and you figure out what that next phase is, because then that gives both sides a way. If Chris Paul wants to just go ring chase, if it doesn't work, great. He can do that and go wherever he wants. If the Suns decide it's time to go younger and look at what the future at that position is, they can. It's the best of all worlds, and it doesn't tie up $50 million over the back half of it, or $60 million depending on how it's structured. I think that's the way I'd rather see this play out, and just play this as a 1 year. Did we catch lightning in a bottle, or is there a real window here overall, and everybody can figure that out together? I feel like that's the best of all worlds for all involved, including CP3 in that case. I do not look at trading Chris Paul. I've heard some people suggest a poo-poo platter from the Lakers, and I'm like, if I'm going to tie up $44 million, I don't want some other team's crap. I want to spend it on Chris Paul, or clean slate. I'll go after somebody else if he walks away.
The Lakers, first of all, this Lakers talk is absolutely trash because they can't even afford him. They can't afford him. They have like $5 million available. That is it. That's not enough for Chris Paul. And that means you got to trade who? None of their other assets. You would have to trade like 5 dudes off that team just to create $45 million for Chris Paul. It's not going to happen.
Exactly. And you don't, and the kind of people, the kind of 5 guys you're going to accumulate aren't the kind of 5 guys you want to spend $44 million
No, it's
on.
the kind that you want to eat because it's a burger shop. That's the only thing you can afford.
Yeah. So like, look, for me, it's either take 1 year, $44 million, or if he walks, fine. You got $44 million to play with to try to find an option for the future like that. I'm fine with either of those. It wouldn't be ideal.
You don't actually have. Sorry, it's not that simple. You don't actually have the $44 million to spend. Then it's all related to the cap. They would have less than half of that.
Okay. So you'll have $22 million to go find a point guard of the future, or plug the hole for a year or two. The point is,
get you $22 million. He shot 30% in the playoffs.
I'm just, you could go make a run at Spencer Dinwiddie, hope the injury, whatever. There's options. I'm just saying my 1A is keep Chris Paul, keep him at the $44 million, and I'm perfectly fine with that. But it's not the end of the world if it goes another way, that you free up options as well, is what I'm trying to say. But there's a lot. It's not just Chris Paul, though. There's a lot of other things on this roster that you have to answer. You've got Payne, who's a free agent, that you have early bird rights on, but you got to figure out what is he actually worth. And to a lesser extent, you got to figure out Torrey Craig, Langston Galloway, Etuan Moore, and Frank Kaminsky. Obviously, declining importance on that list, but with Payne, do you go all out with those early bird rights and extend him? I mean, they can extend him, I believe, up to around $10 million a year based off of the early bird right rules.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Correct.
It's not the MLE. They still would have that as well. They just have the right to go up to about $10 million a year, which is more than enough that Cam would ever get offered by anybody. So
yeah, what is it? You can go 10% above the average salary last year in the NBA, because the general way the bird rights work, you're not gonna give him a percentage of what he was making, because he was making basically the minimum because of where they pulled him off the scrap heap. So you're not going to go that route. But Saul, would you invest $10 million a year over 3-4 years in Payne? Do you believe enough in him as being a key cog in this?
I think a 4-year, $30 million deal would make me feel good. I don't know about 10 a year. It's just because he's still unproven. And the thing I would say is I need to see Cam Payne, and he did it against the Clippers. So I can't knock him for not being able to see him do this. So I'm kind of gonna contradict myself, but I need to see it over a longer period of time. And I need to see a little bit more consistency. For me, Cam Payne, and you saw it in the playoffs, he was very up and down. He had some fantastic games that really saved the Suns' ass, especially against the Clippers. And then he kind of disappeared. Like in the finals, he kind of disappeared until game 6. He had a really good game. And I was actually wanting him to be out there a little bit more because of how ineffective Chris Paul was in the first half. But we just didn't get a real good sense of where Cam Payne was after the first couple rounds of the playoffs, especially once we got to the finals. So, but as a good solid backup, somebody that provides energy, somebody that can run the offense, and somebody that can change the pace, I thought Cam Payne did a fantastic job. So yeah, I think 7, 8, maybe $9 million a year, I'm cool with. 10, 11, 12. I don't know. And you're banking on the fact that no other team would offer him $10 million a year. And there's some desperate teams out there for some point guards. So I don't know.
You're banking on he not only sustains his play, but likely improves a little bit over the next few years too.
He would have to.
That's a big gamble. What I hope happens is I hope Monty says, look, calls him up and says, look, we're trying to build something here. We took a chance on you. You took a chance on us. Give us a little bit of that hometown discount. Try to.
Yeah, I think we want you to be part of it.
That shit don't work.
Reasonable. I think I've seen Lonzo Ball's name in the chat, like every other chat comment for the last 45 minutes here. Look, guys, Lonzo Ball is a restricted free agent, right?
Reports do say New Orleans does not plan to.
Yeah, but he still is a restricted free agent. He's going to get Dennis Schroeder money, which is $22 million a year.
From who?
Well,
one of them desperate teams
who's going to offer him. He's going to get that contract even if he comes back to the Pelicans. That's just a value thing. I'd rather have Cam Payne at $8 million or $6 million or $7 million than Lonzo Ball at 20 or 22.
The conversation should be, if Cam Payne finds a better offer and leaves, then what do we do? Then that's the conversation in my estimation. If Cam Payne wants to stay, Cam Payne is the answer. It's not Lonzo Ball.
No. Right. Look, I'm going to die on this hill forever. Bring Goran back. That seems to be every time that guy has a potential to be a free agent.
You're worried about age and injuries in the playoffs?
I'm kidding.
Okay. All right.
I'm kidding.
All right.
I would say I would like to see 2 names. Actually, just 1 name, really, honestly. And I mentioned this to you guys in text. If Cam Payne were to leave, and I know he doesn't possess the offensive firepower Cam Payne can provide from time to time, but I would like to see TJ McConnell. And I'm not saying that as a Juve homer.
Would be great.
Because he provides what you need on defense. He's a pest. He's a team leader. He's great in the locker room. Like, everybody loves him. Like, I think that would be a great fit. Not Eric Bledsoe, Mega Giants 89. Go back home.
Look, I agree. McConnell would be interesting.
Couldn't watch a minute of the finals. What do you guys think? Eric Bledsoe? He'd be like the least likely person to enjoy the finals.
He's at the hair salon.
Why would you put yourself through that? A name that I find intriguing and is a bit of a blast from the past, but if you let Cam Johnson go and you're looking Cam Payne, if you let Cam Johnson go, we're storming the castle. If you let Cam Payne walk, a guy that could fit a similar role at a much cheaper price, Ish Smith would be interesting to me. He's got that
Ish
speed.
Is basically Cam Payne. Yeah, that'd be fun.
You could get what you get out of Cam Payne at a lower price. That would be
and maybe he'll like the franchise again.
An interesting option there.
Look, hey guys, sorry, I got to run. I just want to throw 1 name out there. I'm sorry, I got to leave you guys early. I got to go in a couple minutes.
Okay.
I'm going to throw 1 name out there that I think should be on everybody's mind is Daniel Tice as a backup big. The dude just does a little bit of everything, has a little bit of extended range, and he at least looks like a dog. And I think he plays like one too.
I think he may be one of those guys that gets way overpaid. He may get the bag this summer, more so than the Suns can
And then
provide. But
one second option, Mason Plumlee from Detroit. They have like 18 centers on that team. I would trade Javon Carter and Jalen Smith for Mason Plumlee.
Miles Plumlee willing to come along for free as well.
Yeah,
so.
right.
So
all right, guys, I got to run. See you later.
He is Silver Fox Dave King. You can follow him on Twitter at Dave King NBA. The NBA is there because I guess he's still covering basketball, even though it's the off season. So let's keep going through this. Dave can go have his breakfast. You and I can talk some additional basketball. For me, when you look at the remainder of those guys on the list that the Suns have to consider re-signing, none of them stand out as overly important to me. I would love to have Torrey Craig back, but it would have to be at the right price, right? Because I feel like his skill set is a skill set you can find multiple places. Maybe not a guy that has fully bought into this system or with the same amount of energy, but I feel like you can find a similar guy to that. I would not overspend on Craig.
I wouldn't overspend, but I also wouldn't say that you can find a similar guy to that, just because of the energy and the effort that he puts out on the court. It's infectious. We saw that in the playoffs, and we saw that, basically since he's gotten here, and so I wouldn't say that it's replicable by a lot of guys in the NBA, but I would say you can find other assets that will give you a little bit more tools in the shed to play with. So, with Torrey, I would love to see him come back. I think he's a great energy guy, great off the bench, gives you a little bit of what you need when you're struggling. And he showed that he can hit the perimeter shot too. So, the ability to spread the floor is vital. But, if we're talking bigs, we had mentioned JaVale McGee. I know he's kind of goofy and he has his little quirks and he does some dumb stuff sometimes on the court, but he's a bona fide big man. He can block shots. He can go up and get it on the offensive boards. He's going to give you a little bit of what you were missing. Think about if you had JaVale McGee against Giannis this year. I think it's a little bit of a different play just because of his length and his awkwardness. Sometimes it's very hard to figure those types of dudes out, and the rest of the league hasn't really been able to figure out JaVale McGee like that. And so I think that would be good. Serge Ibaka is another name that I really like. I really, really like. I'm just afraid you're talking about the age and the injury at that point, right? He's an older guy. I think he had back surgery this year. That's why he didn't play with the Clippers. But he's a veteran. He plays tremendously on the defensive side. He can block shots. He can rebound. He can shoot the perimeter shot. And I think he's a good addition to the locker room. And that's the other part of this is Monty and James Jones. It's not just about what you can do physically and athletically on the court. It's also about what your demeanor is like in the locker room and what you provide to this organization to keep the mojo going. Chris Paul is a very difficult person, from what I hear, a very difficult person to fit around, because he has requirements and he has expectations of what you should be to this team, and not everybody's built for that. Not everybody's built for that, and so you got to find the right guys that can handle that and be an attribute on the court and in the locker room.
Well, let's establish this too. I don't think we really touched on this, but I am of the belief that you're nibbling around the edges this offseason. You're not, there's no, for lack of a better term, you're not big game hunting. You're trying to find these guys that fit in backup roles, can bolster the roster. That is, unless CP3 decides he wants to play elsewhere, then obviously you're hunting for a point guard. But let's operate under the assumption that he's back for, at the minimum, 1 year. You're looking at how do you bolster things, right? To me, I'm interested in a couple of big names. I don't know about JaVale McGee. I don't know if he fits that locker room, the locker room standard that James Jones and Monty Williams.
Guys love him. Like teammates love him.
I mean, depends on. I don't know. I just something about.
There's no way he'd be on the Olympic team if everybody hated his guts.
Well, I'm not saying they hate you.
Well,
because a locker room likes you does not mean you're a good locker room guy. That just means you could be a really fun dude to hang around. That doesn't mean
which is a good locker room guy. What are you talking about?
just because you're having a cocktail party out of your locker does not mean that you're the kind of guy that you want to fit a culture. Is the point? But look, it's an interesting name to me. Nick Batum. If you want to add a guy that can be a stretch and can play 4 and 5 in a smaller lineup at the right price, he could be interesting. A veteran name that could help with some of the rebounding situation when you need it off the bench is a Paul Millsap that I think could be intriguing at the right price. Look, I'm not talking a guy that's going to play major minutes, but if you were your guy, if it went, if he was one of your guys in the big man rotation this year that you could have brought in instead of Frank Kaminsky at that time, that's a benefit. He's the kind of guy that could be a back half of the roster, break glass in case of emergency.
He just seems like he just seems like a smaller version of what you're looking for and a slower version of what you're looking for.
But when you've got, I mean, you're going to have to fill some of these holes with veteran minimum guys and a guy willing to sign a 1-year, $4 million deal. Like, really, your one big play is your mid-level exception at around 10 million, right? And then you're going to have to fill in with veteran minimums and other smaller exceptions potentially. So, you have to value hunt.
If DA, God forbid, if DA had to sit out for whatever reason, right? Whether it be injury or whatever, like, do you want to replace him with Paul Millsap?
No, I'm not saying he's your only big option. I'm just saying he is an option for that third guy that you're going to need, as we saw in a long playoff run. And then, Nerlens Noel is an interesting name to me, that if you wanted a guy that could fill in if Ayton got hurt for a short time, had foul trouble in certain games, he's a guy that can come in and do some of the things that you're getting from DA. You're not all of them. He's not going to be great, but he's good. And that's what you need in that position behind your star big. I think he could be very, very intriguing. And I think he might be able to be had with that mid-level.
I completely agree. I loved what he did in New York this season. It seemed like he had a bounce back year, played very well for the Knicks. I really do like that. A lot of people in chat also like that. I saw a lot of people mention him already. And when you re-mentioned him again, Iverson vlogs, yes, Noel, 3 exclamation points. And if you know me, I'm all about 3 exclamation points. So, I love that. Nerlens Noel defensively gives you a little bit of dog in you. And he's got energy. He plays hard. Like, I love that. Hello, hear me out. Morris twin. No, sorry.
Never. No, none of them.
Never, ever.
I don't want anybody named Morris again after that experience.
And Kelly Olynyk, somebody had mentioned Kelly Olynyk, Gabe Sandoval, I think. Gabe Sandoval and I used to play basketball back in the day. But Kelly Olynyk, I'm not a big Kelly Olynyk guy, just because of the fact that I feel like this team has a healthy balance of dog versus finesse. And I think Kelly Olynyk provides a little bit more finesse than he does dog, and I don't want to tip the scales that way. We need a little bit more aggression. And I think everybody could agree. It would have been nice every now and then just to see Giannis on his ass in the playoffs, just to let him know, like, hey, if you're going to come to the hole, you're going to have to come hard, because this ain't the life. But unfortunately, that did not happen. So,
a couple guys I also like, and I don't know if you'll feel this way. JJ Redick. I know a lot of people like, oh, he's washed, but when he's not making 14, 15 million a year, and he may be a 4 million a year or a veteran kind of guy coming in, I like that potential, spacing the floor, good locker room guy, great relationship with CP3. If CP3 is still here, that's a name that intrigues me. And then on the wing / power forward kind of list, Doug McDermott, who can hit those threes, spread the floor as potential, and JaMychal Green are names that I look at and go, if
there's no chance Denver's going to let JaMychal Green walk.
He already opted out, so I don't know if they have I don't know if they have a wink, we got you covered kind of deal. but he is a free agent. I don't know if there's an opportunity there, but those are just names looking at it. Like I said, if you gotta nibble around the edges, those are the ones that interest me.
Bobby Portis.
Hell no. Hell no.
But why? Tell me why.
Because he helped rip my heart out. I need a few weeks before you tell me Bobby Portis might be the guy I want.
F your feelings right now, okay? Like, this is business.
You know how many tweets I'd have to go back and delete just so Bobby Portis doesn't see them if he comes to Phoenix?
I do like the fact that he did embrace that Squidward picture of him.
Look, Bobby Portis is the kind of guy that could have an impact here for sure, and I think he'd be. He's that kind of dog. The mentality that you're talking about that they need to add some here. Imagine if he had been on this side of things rather than the Milwaukee side of things. It could have swung a series based on his rebounding and timely buckets. So, actually, Cy in the chat brings up a point that JJ Redick, just for the podcast, we don't need any more competition on the Suns podcast front. So screw that. No JJ Redick here. Just no more competition.
5,000 podcasts popped up out of nowhere since this run.
Yeah, but no, I like, to me, again, value shopping is what this free agency is going to be. You're going to have to leverage the fact that people got a very good look about what this quote unquote program is about, right? So they may, and I know you laughed when I suggested a discount, but some guys will take a discount to come play here. They just won't, it'll be guys that are searching for a title or have made their money, those kind of things that may take
to come play here. Yes. To stay here is a different conversation. Okay. If I'm Cam Payne, right? Okay. I'm Cam Payne. I almost was out of the league. Yes. Monty hooked me up, got me here, but I've gone to the NBA finals now. And I was a bona fide contributor to this team. I need to make some money now. And if I have an opportunity to take 10 mil, 11, 12 mil somewhere else for 3 or 4 years, yeah, I'm probably going to do that, because right now it's about, setting myself up for my future as opposed to team success or individual success. I've already achieved that here. So I want that bag now, so that way I can set myself up for life. And that's why I'll never discredit somebody like that for doing something like that. But again, if you're talking about, something like 8 versus 9 million a year, if you're Cam Payne, you could probably sacrifice 3 or 4 mil to stay here, because the fit is perfect for you, the system, and you're going to be embraced and loved here. And so that's worth it to some guys,
That's fair. Guys staying may not take a discount. Guys coming may, just because they saw what this is about. A few names in the chat. I mean, everybody knows I'm a Lauri Markkanen fan, but I imagine he's going to make more money than the Suns would be able to offer to bring him here. Still young, still potential. I'd imagine he's going to make more than that veteran or than that mid-level exception that you'd be able to bring him in on. So I can't see him happening.
Oh, PJ Tucker.
Would he take the money? I don't know if that's a guy that's still looking to get paid, or if he's looking.
I don't think he's going to get paid, though.
I don't know. I've seen dumber things coming off a championship, right?
That's true.
If people are equating a lot of what the Bucks were able to do and what they tapped into throughout that playoff run to PJ Tucker's edge, he may be a guy that gets paid too much over 2 years that you go, I don't know that's right. I love PJ. PJ's edge is fantastic. I think if you had traded for him instead of flipping cash considerations from Torrey Craig, we might have been talking about a bit of a different ending to the season, just because he's the kind of guy that would have gotten in there, mixed it up, got you some boards, done the defensive things that you needed. I don't know about the price tag. That's really that's what I wonder. And you've got a couple things you need to add, not just one piece. So I don't know spending it there. Aaron Baines, look, I think we saw the best that you're ever going to see out of Aaron Baines when he was here. He looked totally washed with the Tampa Bay Raptors this year. I don't see that as an option. Rashawn Holmes is another guy.
He's going to get a lot of money on the
That's
open
my
market.
thought too. Like, yes, was he good here when he played here? Did he bring the energy? Of course. Will always be a fan favorite, but he's going to get paid based on what he was able to do this year as well. So I don't see that happening. This is going to have to get really creative. I don't know if there's a small trade like Plumlee's intriguing. I think he checks a lot of the boxes. I believe his salary is only $8.5 million over the next couple of years. I don't think it's that huge. So you could try to flip a trade, but what are you trading? And does Detroit want that? And you can't trade a first-round pick until 2027 based on all the picks you flipped in the CP3 deal and the pick swaps. So you don't even have that as an asset. So what are you offering? Like those kind of things, like pie in the sky. Yeah, that's great. But how are you actually going to make it happen? Yeah. James Jones is going to make his money this offseason because he's going to have to get creative to fill those holes that are still left.
Well, I mean, he's shown that he could do it before. So, I think everybody has a lot of confidence in what his ability is as a GM to be able to execute some of these deals. Only he and Monty and in that front office knows exactly what this team is all about behind closed doors and what really is dispensable versus what really isn't. And so, I have confidence that they're going to make some moves that are going to make sense. And even if they don't, they have obviously garnered a lot of leeway into seeing how things play out because there's been plenty of decisions that they have made in the early going where we all were like, what? The trade for cash considerations, trading TJ away, or TJ, is it TJ? Yeah, TJ.
TJ Warren.
TJ Warren. I was thinking TJ Tucker for whatever reason. I was like, no, that's not it. It's, and then drafting Cam Johnson, all decisions that we were like, what? Why? And they've all worked out. So not gonna hate on that front office at all. I think that they have a plan. They always have a plan. They seem like they're very prepared and organized, and I think they're going to execute it. And we'll see on draft day what happens because that's the first stepping stone in all this.
And to the chat, no, we cannot bring cash considerations back. He's a champ now, which means he's going to probably be priced out of the market that you're looking for. As much as I'd love to see Ring of Honor member cash considerations back in the fold. So I think we're going to put a wrap on it there. We will have a little bit more time next Saturday to talk free agency as well as we'll be, I believe, 1 day away from the legal tampering period, which is the dumbest phrase in all of sports. You're either tampering or you're not. There's no legal way to tamper with somebody, but we'll be close there. Yes, so.
Seabuck Star actually reminded me that is a name that I would like to see, Montrezl Harrell. I know a lot of other people do not want to see Montrezl Harrell in a Suns uniform, but he's a dog that I would love to see because he has the length, he has a little bit of dog in him, and he has a passion about him to want to play and play hard. So I like Montrez.
Yeah. You know what I like too is Montrezl Harrell is motivated to beat both LA teams, and I like any guy that has a little vendetta against LA. So I like that name as well. He's a guy. If you could get someone like that for that mid-level exception, it could be a difference maker, and the kind of, as we said, nibbling around the edges that really makes a lot of sense. So we will see there. We've got Olympic basketball coming up. We're going to see Devin Booker at, I think you got to wake up like in the middle of the night.
5 a.m. tomorrow morning, 5 a.m. Oof.
I got up early enough for this morning. I'll watch it on DVR. Likely going to play some minutes there, Devin Booker. We've got the draft on Thursday. I'm leaning towards we'll probably do a show, but I think we'll let everybody know Wednesday if we're going to do a live draft show. Maybe we'll call up the Suns Jam Session boys and run it back with those guys so we all can go, who the hell is this dude? And or maybe we need to bring Casey Jacobson back, who bailed our ass out on the Jalen Smith pick last year.
Yeah, for sure.
So we will be back later in the week though, talking everything draft and free agency. A big thank you to Nekias Duncan for joining us on the program today. Also, Dave King, who's off eating breakfast now with his family because, you couldn't set that for 9:30 rather than at 9 o'clock. So you can follow Saul Bookman at Saul_Bookman. The underscore is there so we can fit an extra big in there for about 10 million that can rebound in the NBA Finals if necessary. You can follow me at Espo. You can follow the show at Sun Solar Panel. We will talk to you next time here on the Solar Panel. Ahoy, hoy.
Barkley, 20-footer, yes, for the tie. Scarherd turnaround shot in the air. It's good. What? Finds demolished. Barkley puts it up. Does it count? It does. Jacob does.